is trustworthy, so go on there. People are thirsting for truth nowadays,
They are.
and they're just not getting it with a lot of what's on the airwaves.
Authenticity is so needed, and I just tell people in this digital age, isn't it nice to have a real human being on the other end?
Absolutely right. That is what we were talking about with Gil Santos. He was in the business for 50 years. I've celebrated my 50 years.
Congratulations,
also,
Phil.
so thank you. I just thank God. I mean,
Amen.
This is
He's the giver.
The reason.
He's the giver.
Yes, absolutely, my buddy. Can I tell you a quick story about Chuck and when we had the diner?
Please do.
So every so often he'd say, "So what's today's blue plate special?" And so,
That's Chuck. That's Chuck.
And so whenever I'd mention, well, Chuck, I hate to say it, but tender Yankee pot roast. He'd say, with roasted potatoes. And he would make you hungry on the air. Well, come to find out, one day we were talking about soft drinks. And he said, "Phil, do you folks still carry Moxie?" I said, "Heck yes, I said, "Of course." He said, do you like it?" I said, "I hate it." He said, "No." He said, "It's a delicacy." I said, "Well, I'll send it to you." I said, "It reminds me of swamp water."
Yeah.
"Well, I live here." He says, "I love that. What do you think I drink down here?"
Oh, my goodness.
I used to send him on a monthly basis 6-packs and 12-packs of Moxie.
He drank it.
He drank it.
He drank
it, and he loved it. And when I tell you, it tasted like swamp water with bitters.
Oh.
They still make it. They do. He loved it, and he loved cheese rolls that we'd make from the diner.
Oh, you guys made the best stuff. I got a chance to actually dine there physically in your diner, and I was, if you're hungry, that's one thing. I was hungry, but I think I had 2 stomachs when I showed up. I just, let's have pie, let's have dessert, and your beautiful wife Celeste was there. And I don't know how you ever juggled doing the diner show and literally running the diner. I mean, you amaze me. You did so much back then. It was just, and you always did it with a smile. You made everybody feel welcome that came in. You had this huge, infectious smile, which you still have, never lost it. What I always loved about you, Phil, is you're always positive.
Well, thank you, Keith. It's a decision that we have to make, a daily decision. Which way are we going? And I'll tell you the truth, that decision was made very easy because every day I just look up and I say, "Lord, point me in that direction that you need me." And that's what gives me my foundation. That's what gives me my smile and my purpose. And when I bring that onto the airwaves, I don't know, there's just a chemistry that clicks. I don't know.
It's magic,
any
man.
Better way to put it.
It's magic. I think truly that some people are just meant to do what they do. And I will tell you that when I was 12, I knew what I was going to do. Not everybody is that fortunate, but I'm not into the psychic hotlines, and I did like Art Bell, did like the coast to coast stuff, but I had a few dreams before I worked at certain places. But one of the biggest impressions that I had one day before I ever worked for Chuck was listening to his show in Illinois back in the early 90s, and I always wondered who did his production because it wasn't all that terrific. And I saw myself producing his commercials and writing them and working with him. And I never thought in a million years I would. And it happened. And that's a true story. I can't explain it for the life of me, but it did happen. And I still think about it like, how did I know that?
Yes. Yeah. Some things are beyond us, and really, we can't answer them. But for that to happen to you, and the same with Chuck. I mean, he was a teenager when he started as a disc jockey up there in
Elgin, Illinois.
Right?
Yeah, an African American, as he credits being the manager up there, gave him his first shot in radio, and he just loved working for that station, and still talked about it there in Gainesville at the nursing home for years. Just his love for radio and transmitters, and he just loved everything about the business. And he, technology-wise, I mean, that guy, you could ask him just about anything, and he was a walking encyclopedia. He could just go for hours.
And Keith, let me ask you: did Chuck have a college education, a degree, or anything like that?
You would think he did, but to my knowledge, no.
Exactly.
High school, and that's as far as that went. But a lot of people don't realize that Chuck was not born with a silver spoon. Now, his dad ran a factory, and after his dad finally passed away in the late 90s or something, or early 90s rather, he did get a bit of inheritance to buy the Telford. But there was a time that Chuck was homeless here in Tampa, Florida, and I have some broadcast him talking about it. And he was under a bridge, and somebody recognized him that did work for Chuck, and took him in this vehicle, brought him home, bought him some clothes, fed him, and got him back on his feet. And Chuck got on his feet by going ahead of the trash truck, the garbage trucks, and he'd go ahead of them, pick up the treasure that was left, and sold stuff at flea markets until he could get back doing what he loved to do. And a lot of people don't realize that Chuck was homeless at one time, but somebody recognized him and said, "You help me, and now I'm going to help you."
And I'm as you're saying this, all I can think of is perseverance, really being kind of like a stubbornness with a real purpose. He had that perseverance, Keith. I wasn't surprised when I got to know Chuck and started learning all about those years, why he persevered. And, the hardest battles we'll ever have to fight sometimes are between whether I succeed or whether I just give up and let, fate take over. And I think one of the greatest gifts that he had was a blessing from God to do just that, to have perseverance, to have, as you pointed out, that brilliance, the capacity to read something and then translate it into Americanese. He was a great translator.
Yes, he was.
And this is why so many people depended on him as a key, because, these issues were so complex. A lot of folks didn't understand, the complexity of them. He could cut through it
quick,
and he would decipher them and speak in their language. And
to the common man, Mr. and Mrs. America.
Yeah.
And you used to announce, you'd see, I remember your announcer voice, you go, from Mr. and Mrs. America. You would announce for the people, and you'd write, I don't know if you'd write the lines out or you'd just do it, ad-libbing, but we'd call it flyover country. But Chuck was on 300-plus radio stations, 60 cable outlets. He was second only to Rush Limbaugh back at Talkers Magazine. Chuck pioneered talk radio, first 24-hour all-news talk radio network with many well-known hosts. And before anyone even knew who Mark Levin was, he was a guest on Chuck. Ralph Nader. The names just go on and on and on. But he gave people opportunity, and they started their own talk shows.
Absolutely. This is why he was the pioneer. He was the one who opened the door for so many. You mentioned Nader, Ralph Nader.
What a name.
He went on, to become a regular on my show.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
Neat. Neato.
But he had that beautiful ability to economics, people who needed a little bit of guidance economically. He really could see tomorrow, today.
The man with a crystal ball. Yeah, he was, some people say he was just a couple years ahead. He was decades ahead. With GATT and NAFTA, what he fought so hard against the Clintons that got him in really hot water with them, where Hillary Clinton put an 18-year audit, and Bill Clinton knew about it. But she was the main one to shut Chuck down off the airways, put an 18-year audit on Chuck to shut him down, get him off the airwaves, because he was telling truth. And now all the stuff that Donald Trump now is finally brave enough to talk about is what Chuck talked about and lost really a big part of his microphone for.
Absolutely.
Because he knew GATT and NAFTA was a bad deal.
Yep. GATT and NAFTA, I remember that.
He knew it was a bad deal. Free trade ain't free. Ross Perot said that. Free trade ain't free. And billionaire Ross Perot knew it.
I remember him being, he favored a moratorium on legal immigration and the deportation of all illegals.
Yes, he did. Way ahead of the time. This is the Trump revolution, the Trump movement, long time coming. But Chuck, he was so pleased, Phil, to see Donald Trump get into the presidency. Yeah, Donald Trump's not perfect. But I'll tell you, a lot of the things that Chuck fought for, you can see coming alive with the Trump administration, and I hope much more to come.
And Keith, the first one of the first times that Donald Trump, when he first announced, you called me, and I was on the air with you and Chuck, and I said, "Oh no, he's not going to make it. Are you kidding me? Donald Trump? No way." It just shows you how far I had to learn. And how wrong I was.
We knew early on when me and Chuck relaunched the show that he would get in. And Chuck would send him letters in his book, Will We Ever Learn? He said, you talk about these things, you do these things. And whether he read it or not, I don't know. All I will tell you is that a lot of the things that Donald Trump has talked about on the campaign trail and still talks about today on Twitter, I say to myself, God, didn't Chuck talk about that in the early 90s?
Absolutely. He was a wonderful blend of populist and liberal and conservative.
Yes, both. You couldn't put him down. And that drove people in the media bonkers because they really couldn't figure out if Chuck, could decide whether he was a liberal or a Democrat. Liberal, Democrat, Republican, Independent. They didn't know what he was because it depended on what the issue was. And right was right, wrong was wrong, and that's where his heart was. He was critical of the Bush administration. George W., H. Bush, Herbert Walker, all those people, the bankers, the oil. I mean, so it didn't matter if it was William Jefferson Clinton or it was George Bush. He was critical of both administrations.
He certainly was. I loved the way he would explain, because I didn't know what, a GATT was.
It sounds like a gnat.
It does, absolutely.
What's GATT? GATT? What's GATT?
Yeah. But, when he would explain, Keith, that, the American middle-class, hardworking person would lose his or her job and get paid less because of what was going on, that made sense. That's when he became like the Ralph Nader, the champion.
That's right.
Of the middle-class American, the backbone, the spine of this fabulous country of ours. So these are just, some of the attributes that I will always have for Chuck, and he's always going to be in my heart, just surrounded with my blessings and my thanks for helping guide me as well.
Well, I appreciate all the kind words and your contribution to this tribute show to Chuck Harder, dead at 74, born in 1943, and died in Gainesville, Florida. And Chuck will be missed, and I don't think too soon forgotten. I have thought about Phil, and I just want to mention it to you, and we'll talk off air about this. And I've thought about this